I'd like to call the City of Clewiston City Commission meeting to order. This is Monday, March 20th at 5 p.m., 2023. I'd like to invite Pastor Vargas to come and lead us in prayer, and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Lord Jesus, we thank you, God, for this day that you have given us. We ask, God, in this moment, at this season of our life, that we would connect with your divine wisdom and your sovereign hand in these times and moments. We ask, God, that you would lead the council, Lord, in our city, Lord, and all the leadership here with your divine hand, God. We lean upon you today for understanding. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Manager, any additions, deletions to the agenda?
Just one item, Mayor and Commission. I laid, or the clerk put before you a press release that was done this afternoon today regarding, and you already was sent a copy from the Clewiston Sugar Festival on behalf of their committee that volunteers and worked the event and planned the event. It's there before you. I think it's significant that their estimation is this was a record-breaking crowd with approximately 22,000 people in attendance for the weekend event. And just wanted to recognize that. And I don't know if you have any comments, but since it wasn't on the agenda specifically, I thought I would bring it up at this time.
I was going to wait till my closing comments to say something, but I just think it's important, I think as a community as a whole, that we saw, those of us that were down there, what a wonderful event it was. And it did bring a lot of folks to our community, and certainly I had no idea of the numbers. But it wasn't just for the one-day event. It was for everything that the Sugar Festival Committee did to prepare for the entire week. You know, all the community events and just the fun of family activities. And I think it was extraordinary and amazing week of celebration of our agricultural heritage. So I think that certainly Saturday was a crowning achievement of the hard work that's been going on for over a year. And, there's no doubt that our city staff really put their hand to the plow and got the work done. They were amazing. And so I know I've used that word twice, but that's how I feel about the event that happened this whole last week. The true celebration of a community heritage.
That's what I was going to add. On behalf of the committee, just thanking the city for putting their best foot forward and assisting in any and every way that the committee needed. We really appreciate that support. And new to, like Molly said, it wasn't just that event. So one of the highlights of this year's, I don't know, maybe we'll call it a week-long celebration, was the softball game between between the CPD and the Henry County Sheriff. And Brandon Thomas came up with that idea, and Chief Lewis and Sheriff Wooden just took it and ran with it on social media and had so much fun and built up so much, excitement for the game that when I pulled into the park, I thought, oh my gosh, look at all these people. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was a community event free of charge. And, as a committee member, we're always like, okay, this costs a lot of money. And I'm going, man, this could be a fundraiser, Obviously, we're not going to do that. But so thank you for that and both of your departments. And, of course, Danny and his group. We can't do it. We can't do it without the city. So we thank you guys.
Awesome event. The camaraderie was really awesome between the two teams. They're already talking about next year and who we can recruit, maybe.
That was actually me on the festival's social media page. I just kind of threw that out there to make them start talking about it.
I hear there's a new category on the application for CPD and Sheriff's Office.
Yeah, but awesome job by everyone. Anyone else want to comment on it?
I just thought the city did a great job with the electricians, the even the garbage pickup, everything. They were absolutely amazing. Anything that I asked them to do or any committee member asked them to do, it was done already, so they were just fantastic.
I had a resident, he posted some positive stuff on social media. He said he went up there the next morning and you could not tell that thousands of people and vendors had been there. And what a great job the city did and our staff. I think that says there.
Oh, yeah.
Kudos to the Sugar Festival Committee and to the city staff for the work that they did. It's amazing. Again,
And thank you, Randy, for squeezing this in for us.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, good job.
Otherwise, no other changes recommended, Mayor.
Okay. We'll move on to public comments. If anyone has anything they would like to comment on at this time, we will have a chance at the agenda items for you to comment on the ordinance reading, but if there's anything else, now's the time. Anyone? Okay. Consent agenda is before the commission.
move that we approve.
Second?
Motion by Gardner, second by Highslope. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we have a first reading of an ordinance before us tonight. This is ordinance number 2023-02, and it amends the City of Clewiston zoning map for certain lands with a total approximate size of 405.8 acres owned by United States Sugar Corporation from various zoning designations, including C, which is general commercial, R1A, R1B, which is single-family residential, R3, which is multifamily, and a PUD, a planned unit development. U.S. Sugar is requesting a rezone of approximately 405.8 acres in sections 9 and 10, and to the commercial, the R1, R1B, and so forth, we just read, for a proposed mixed-use development known as the Clewiston North and Marina PUD. The Planning and Zoning Board met on February 27, 2023, to consider the request, and after the review and discussion, found the application consistent with the city's comprehensive plan and the land development regulation, and recommended for approval of this request. The vote was 3-0, with 2 board members absent, Mickey McGahee and Caroline Benacourt. We will now declare the public hearing open for the first reading. And is there city staff or?
Yes, sir, Mayor. I would like to make one comment, just for clarity. This is the zoning action as recited by the mayor and referenced in the documentation. We've had a couple of questions about this, so I just thought I'd go ahead and mention it up front, that even though the zoning classification, you correctly listed the categories, the specific plan that they presented for a PUD approval is different in the sense that they are not proposing anything other than the commercial and the residential for single family and R2. But those are allowed within that district, but they're not listed here. I just didn't want to have anyone confused by that. The plan is for R2, but the zoning district, once approved, would allow for R3 as well, but they do not include at this time in their sketches or plans R3. I would like to recognize our director, Travis Reese, to make some introductory comments, and then I think we can proceed into the public hearing portion then.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. This parcel of land, as the manager stated, a little over 400 acres. In our future land use, this is already your gateway PUD area. If you recall, we did a master plan already, or the PUD on the south side. This is the extension of that, going all the way back to 2006. So the applicant now is ready to rezone this and put it into a PUD. So this is the final action. It allows them to put it into the zoning category PUD. So it will go into a PUD. They're required to have a master plan. You'll see in your packet that the master plan has been depicted there. As the manager stated, some people look at our zoning district and get confused on numbers or letters in zoning district. Just keep in mind, in PUDs, those have their own legend, and that's what they depict is those areas. So if you have an R3 in our zoning district in this general city area, it's not necessarily the same thing in a PUD, but there is a legend in there that explains what it is and what's allowable use. Very similar. So all the uses are the same, meaning the area in question, it had commercial, multifamily, single family. So going into a PUD allows the developer or the owner to move the densities around, move the zoning around that best fits that gateway area. So that's what we've asked them to do in our comprehensive plan. The Planning and Zoning Board and the staff have looked at this and find that they are in compliance with that. So that's the plan before you to take a look at, and I'll have some representative here from the applicant that can go into further detail, but it basically is saying this is what they would propose right now. And if you approve the plan, then the master plan, then that's what they will have to adhere to. And that's what they'll build out. If they want to deviate from anything in the zoning code, it has to be spelled out. There are 4 deviations in this plan. They're very minor, so we felt they were appropriate. Planning and Zoning Board felt they were appropriate. They'd have to come back to you if they want to change anything other than that. So it's not a massive change to your zoning. It's simply using your zoning and moving the densities around and the areas around to best suit the land use. So with that, I'll just leave it for any questions you have, or I can bring the applicants up, let them speak about it. Any questions?
I just have a couple of questions, and just for clarification, Randy, I know that at the workshop we had, we talked about several items, and then in reading some of the documents, I learned more about the project. And I think the only questions I've received from the community are, I guess just to clarify, that these aren't going to be 50-foot lots, that it's a minimum of a 50-foot requirement, but that there are different size lots on this PUD, is my understanding. I just want to put
That's
that out
correct.
for
It's
the
not
public.
setting that they would be a standardized size. It would be a minimum requirement, and that's pretty standard fare in development circles. And and that's due to the unique shape of various properties, particularly at the end of cul-de-sacs or in certain areas, conforming to the shape of the property. That was discussed at length at the Planning and Zoning meeting, and that was a point that was mentioned. And so that is correct, your interpretation of that.
And I know that when you look at new developments, especially I just went by Arden on Saturday morning, and the fact that the new developments are not the larger 1 acre sites that we've, or half acre sites that we've had in town, or even, much larger. So I know that the trend is to have smaller lots. I just wanted to clarify for the public that this entire development isn't going to be 50-foot lots. There's a variation on the property, and that's the minimum lot requirement.
That's
The second question I had from the workshop that we discussed was about the safety, the emergency services. And, I know that it shows adjacent to additional commercial property to the east or close to it, but it also, residential is also across the canal. So I just didn't know that for the future I know that we talked about, Randy, you had mentioned that the size of it most likely would be for storage and future or use for the fire department or emergency services, but it might not be called upon to be an actual place to dispatch from. I hope I'm not putting words in your
No,
mouth.
that's
but
correct.
I think that's what we talked about at the workshop. I didn't attend the P&Z, so I didn't hear the conversation. So I just wanted to clarify that as well.
Yes,
That designation, look at that ES designation as, in your code that you're used to, as a public, a P. So even though that was the thought process going in there, that land can be used anything in the public use. So maybe we didn't need it. We talked about a fire station, but maybe we don't need it for that. Maybe Danny needs it for a utility use of some sort. Many things can go in there. It's as long as it's a civic, public type use in that ES area.
Yeah, and it would be to support the city, but that is something that we're going to have to contend with, particularly considering some of the other requests pending for annexation further west. At some point, the city, for fire insurance purposes and other requirements of the fire code, may necessitate that we have a site to stage emergency equipment, possibly even have two footprints of two stations to meet requirements for service response time and things of that nature. I've run into that in my career. I had a conversation with someone today about that with that specific point to where dimensionally you have to respond within certain periods of time to achieve improved fire rating, and that is one of the considerations is the geographic location, and it could be that would be advantageous. Also, it's standard fare during emergencies, in particular for emergency services agencies, to stage equipment at alternative locations so that all the equipment's not in one site that could be damaged by whatever, storm, fire, any other catastrophe. And so having a facility there where we could store certain emergency equipment that we're in a footprint right now with the existing fire station and EMS location that's managed by the county, that we can't really reasonably expand the building and add more bays, for example. And if our equipment needs, we're already storing some things next door at the former police department location for that very reason. So we've outgrown our existing spaces. But as Travis pointed out, there may be other needs that the city has for particularly emergency service response, but any other utility or whatever requirement, we could store equipment there. But there are no plans for a specific building design. Certainly, we would take into consideration adjoining uses and being an asset to the neighborhood and not something that would be a detriment to the residential adjoining properties, even though there would be a canal plus a water body, a water feature between the two, so there would be obviously a considerable setback. But I'm glad you brought it up so that for the record, for the public, we're at least making them aware that no specific plan has been developed.
And I know that in the workshop, just I'll bring this up again, I mean, I would love to see development, as quickly as it can be done for the town's future, but also that this is a 20-year plan. Is that, and I didn't know if that would have been brought up at the P&Z meeting, that it's not something
was.
that,
Yes,
okay.
and that's in step with our long-term planning. This is part of our long-term planning goal, and that's why I mentioned the 2006 was when we originally approved the Gateway development. So it is long-term. You think about 2006 has been a long time ago. So we're there now, 2023. The applicant's come back with a new master plan. I know we already have a master plan on the south side, but just in the talking with the developer and the owner's representative, I think that this one will take off quicker, hopefully in a 20-year time frame.
And just, I know that we mentioned the ES already, the emergency services, but anything on that property, once it's in the city's, it's under for the city to make decisions, those are going to be public meetings and decisions that have to be made for the
Correct.
future. So everyone in the community would know that whatever's going to be happening on that property, we're going to be having discussions here for the future. So
Absolutely.
that
Great point. This is not the final
commercial
step.
and residential-
This is the second step.
Right.
So this is getting the zoning in place, so they have the
Right.
the right to develop on their property, and they have to give you this master plan and say, this is what I envision.
Right, but in the future, with the city's budgetary, decisions that being made of what happens when, and whatever's going to go on that site on the city's behalf, it's going to be a process that'll be discussed here.
That is correct.
And it'll be a
There'll be a
public
commission
process
decision.
at that time.
Correct.
Right. But when we get there, as Randy mentioned, insurance needs and response times will be presented that we have to have this because of this, and we have to have that, and it'll be out of our hands by then. I think it's prudent that we have that information before us before we vote on things like this. I mean, we get down the road, we have to have it because for insurance and storage and response times, then our hands are tied because now we have to. I think it'd be important to have that information in front of us before we vote on things like this.
Well, I think it's
Because we
important.
can't afford a new fire station, and the response times is minutes. The whole western Palm Beach County has 3 fire stations that cover 3 cities, and their response time and their fire stations are much farther away than our city limits.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't anticipate it would have to be a staffed facility for the uses.
But it would take equipment, very expensive equipment to put there.
Well,
'Cause you wouldn't
equipment we're
split your-
probably already gonna have.
You wouldn't split your equipment. That wouldn't make sense.
They do, usually.
You could.
It's pretty
Again, this
common.
is a long-term, and I appreciate the discussion, but that's 20 years long-term. The life of a piece of fire equipment is 20 years. We're about to replace some now due to age. And Commissioner, I respect where you're coming from with that, but it's hard for us to, we know it's out there, but we approve these plans based on maximum densities. The school board looks at them, we look at them, all public services look at it. But you really, as they come back with their development plans, what are they really going to build? That's when we have to worry about, okay, how are we going to service that? And that's a whole nother discussion. We get into how impact fees work, and
But,
Right.
but
it will
simply,
come. We have, the next meeting, we'll have some annexation talk.
but specifically, there would be no obligation on the part of the city to spend anything and do
Right, that's
anything on
correct.
the site. You can make it a park.
Yep,
I mean, you
and keep in
could-
mind
you
with
could do
response times, we're talking
whatever.
about that deals with mostly your insurance premiums, what you actually pay for your residential and commercial insurance. As they rate us, we go through a 5-year rating. As they rate us, that they will not, it's proprietary of how they actually come up with the formula, so they won't tell, each insurance company won't tell the others how they do it. But a major part, that's all they'll tell us, a major part of what you pay on insurance, on your property insurance, for your loss, your casualty, loss insurance is based upon that rating. Because over the course of that loan or the course of that mortgage, they may lose that home if it's required to have that insurance on it. They have some formula how they do that, so they rate fire departments because fire and smoke is the biggest damage they have, which is water damage, unfortunately, if you have to put a fire out. So those losses are based on, or the losses they experience are based on how much they're going to charge the customer. We're all the customers, so it's a trade-off. It really is. If we don't do the things that keep in a good ISO rating, then we'll see it migrate up in costs. So it is a balancing act between what the community can afford and what the insurance company's going to charge us. So we have to make some investment in that.
And I think it sets a foundation. I mean, when you look at the plan, it sets a foundation for the future. I mean, we want to see the growth. We know that we're going to have added expenses, but that growth will help pay for that as well. With
And it will.
New houses, new everything.
And
So,
typically
but
your
we
new-
have to have that foundation, and the plan is a foundation. The PUD has that, so.
Okay, and if there was no other questions, I'll let you bring up Laura DeJohn and let her explain that more, what she has on her slides here, of the more exciting part.
While she's coming up, I have one last comment. As far as paying for this all should be done through impact fees. It shouldn't cost the city a dime to build a fire station or whatever is needed on that property in the future, because impact fees, as this project starts, should be reevaluated. And the school has to do the same thing, because they're going to have to expand their schools if we fill this property up. Again, I know it's a 20-year plan, but had the crash of 2007 not happened, there would already be houses out there. That's the only reason it stopped, is because the company that was going to do it, I don't think they went belly up, but it wasn't lucrative. There's no reason to do it. Everything's cyclic, and we know that. So we could approve this today, and it might be 20 years from now, another commission may be talking about, hey, let's break ground. However, I think we need to take a strong look at the impact fees, and I'm sure that you guys probably already have, but we'll have that discussion after we move along,
Duly
a little
noted.
further along.
Don't object to the impact fees. It is a process to do that, but they're a good thing. That way, the people who live here now are not paying for future development. You already have that in your water and sewer. Water and sewer will not cost any taxpayer any additional monies for expansion of water plants or sewer plant, because those impact fees are in place today to help offset that. So the fire, police, medical, public works, that infrastructure, stormwater, that's not there. It could, well, we would love to look at that over the next maybe 10-year horizon.
And don't misunderstand my questioning. I support this, but I also don't want the city to obligate ourselves to $10, $12 million down the line, and we don't have a way to pay for it. Because through my experience, I hear things that make my ears perk up. May, possibly. Those are horrible words. When you're looking at a project, negotiating a contract, anything may, possibly, where it's just things that make my ears perk up.
Yeah,
And I appreciate that.
And that's a good point, but of course, this just lays out a plan, a site plan which hadn't been finalized. Obviously, they would go through the process if they're successful in getting the zoning action complete of actual design. They would have to make a formal offer to the city to accept the site, and we're not obligated to take it. We're not obligated under any specific conditions, but it does give the city a location that hopefully would be at a minimal cost of $1 or whatever, I would hope, and it would allow similar discussion. The mayor mentioned schools. The county schools are very interested in future facilities to handle growth that's occurring throughout the county, not just this proposal, but in other parts of the county. And they're already looking at the potential for how those things will be paid for from a capital cost. The county commissioners have engaged an assessment, as I understand it, a study that we'll watch very carefully to look at the imposition of things like impact fees for various developments and whatever. And so there'll be a lot of attention to that as time goes on. But your point's well taken. No obligation on the city's part at this point. Wouldn't be until the city commission authorizes it, a specific project and a specific appropriation and the sources of funding for that.
Well said. And the only thing I'll add to that is, I keep coming back to 2006. That was the time that then commission approved the additional density, the additional houses in those areas. This plan is actually under those minimum, the maximum thresholds. Not by much, but they are under the minimum or the maximum allowable. So those are the times when the school board and I'll reiterate that going forward on other developments, it's the future land use. When you make those changes, those are the times that you're making actual changes that are long term. In 2006, they envisioned this. We're in 2023 now. We're just getting to this step, so it's taking a little longer than we thought. But the schools, fire, all the city staff, the county staff, transportation, we all take a look at those future land uses. We knew that this area would not always be agricultural. It was going to be some sort of development. We knew about what the densities, we knew what the maximum densities were going to be. So, as I said, it's the second step. It's not us rezoning. We're rezoning into the district that we told them we would like them to do. So back in 2006. So that makes it a little clearer that all we're doing today is the administrative action of saying, yes, the applicant now wants to come into the district in which we asked them to go to in 2006 for the Gateway South or Gateway North project. So with those requirements of that was to bring a master plan. And what you see today is the master plan, the way they want to develop it, and any deviations from the current zoning that you have. As I said, those deviations are listed in this master plan.
And of course, tonight is just the first reading. There will be a public hearing and final action. And I do know that even from our planning review, there's a couple of revisions that the attorney wants to share with you that have been suggested and requested that we consider before you take final action on it. But I guess we should hear from the public maybe first, or the representatives.
Yes, absolutely.
and then-
Commissioner, have any other questions, comments?
Or do you have something you want to show us on the slides?
Good evening, Laura DeJohn with Johnson Engineering on behalf of U.S. Sugar. Yes, I thought as we talk through a lot of, you've discussed most of the substance of the request, but maybe visuals would help kind of tie it all together. If Kathy could help me, we'll just scroll through because I'd like to show exactly what we were just describing. So all that black crisscross on the map where we have labeled the subject property is the Gateway Mixed Use District that you've been discussing. So the north side of 27 all the way up to the C21 Canal. That large 400 plus acre property is what we're talking about. The entire design of this project has been done in alignment and coordination with the Gateway South, which is just on the south side of 27. And we are fitting basically putting, round pegs and round holes where the Gateway Mixed Use District is already defined in your comprehensive plan, and we're fitting the uses into that mixed use formula the way you've established in your comprehensive plan. So the next slide just shows you What Travis was describing, again, the subject property is that large 400-acre site, and the different colors represented there are the different zoning districts that do apply today. So today, the red along 27 is commercial, the yellow is multifamily, and the purple and the beige tone are both single-family type zoning designations. And if we go to the next slide, the concept we put together marries up principally with that same format. So commercial along 27, a multifamily zone behind the commercial as you're going north, and then single family is designated across the whole northern larger portion of the site. And at the northernmost tip, a hotel marina destination is oriented toward the C21 canal. The last slide I'll show is just what we were told was that connectivity is a very important consideration in this development. So we've put the concepts forward in our backup material to show the concept of building roads that are welcoming and accommodate vehicles, accommodate pedestrians, accommodate golf carts if need be. So 10-foot wide paths along the large kind of main entry road. And then the neighborhood streets are proposed to be 50-foot wide rights of way that still allow room for sidewalks, street trees, and the vehicular traffic. That's our kind of spine road concepts. And then we've worked with your staff who wanted to make sure there's connectivity to Ponce de Leon, there's connectivity allowed to Berner, and then there are opportunities for multi-use paths. We're proposing not vehicular, but 10-foot wide paths that would allow walking or bicycling or golf carts along Avenida del Rio and along Caribbean. So with that, and there's one more interconnection, which would be ideal, would be to be able to connect to Walmart, where we propose a commercial zone. There would be a natural connection to relieve and provide connectivity to the Walmart site. So we've represented all that on the concept plan that was right above this slide. And as Travis described, this kind of puts in a technical plan format the commitments and the ideas that we're talking about. The ES, or essential services area, is about 2.5 acres. And from the applicant's standpoint, that's just a reservation of land. It's just a commitment from the applicant to say, hey, if needed, when needed, if it works out, there's a dedication in mind to make sure we don't fill the whole site with development and forget the possibility that something might be needed in the future from a public use standpoint. So it's just a representation that thought is there. And as Travis mentioned, the 4 deviations do get keyed on this diagram to represent what those are. We talked about those quite a bit at Planning and Zoning. I'll be glad to go into them in more detail if you'd like, but I know members of the public might be interested to share their thoughts as well. So I'll yield.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
No, thank you for that.
Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, if I may add on to it a little bit here. There are actually 2 recommended revisions to the ordinance that's in front of you this evening made by LaRue Planning as part of the city staff report. They just inadvertently did not make it onto the copy which was added onto the agenda. This is regarding the conditions in section 1 of the ordinance. The suggested revision was under item 3 under section 1. It reads, all development must conform to the general design of the MCP contained in Exhibit A and the requirements of the Clewiston Land Development Code. The suggested revision is to add the language except for specific deviations granted. The second suggested revision is to add a section 8 to the section 1 conditions, which will read, at the time of site plan concurrency analysis, the applicant should attempt to connect the existing transportation network to the maximum extent possible. For example, future development of the site should attempt to promote connectivity to Berner Road. Again, those were suggested revisions made by the city's staff planning review, and we would be asking you to consider those a part of today's ordinance. I wanted to just bring that up and give the applicant a opportunity to respond to those, should they wish to.
You already mentioned Burner Road, so.
Right. I appreciate the chance to hear and consider the additions. We would be comfortable with those additions that have been mentioned. I'm also going to ask or suggest your consideration on one other change under section 1, which would be the text under number 6 of your section 1. I think this is probably standard language where you require horizontal construction must commence within 5 years, or this whole master plan will be deemed vacated, and then a new PUD zoning would have to be filed. We would ask, instead of 5 years, to have the grace period go until 7 years, only because markets are unpredictable, and it gives a little bit more comfort to know that there's a 7-year window that this stays alive rather than a 5-year window.
That language you suggested is not very binding. Attempt and should attempt. Strengthen that language.
As it relates to the connectivity portion, I would certainly agree with you. It's certainly aspirational as written.
And that's intentional. As the manager spoke, there's another step to this as well as they come back with their plat. And this is going to require a traffic analysis. And we want to emphasize that we would like connectivity, but we don't want to lock it down. If they can show that they can get the traffic flows and not need the connectivity, we may still want it to put it in there. Let's leave it open-ended, but at least in the order itself, that we have to at least address it, but not to lock it in that we absolutely have to. If you lock it in, then we have to change the ordinance later. I think the language is good, and it's pretty persuasive that it needs to be done. But if it doesn't, it's still going to come back before the commission, but you wouldn't have to change the ordinance to do it. And what Laura just discussed with the staff would have no problem with the addition of the language for the 7 years. The 5 is just a placeholder, so that's completely up to your discretion.
I think that's reasonable. Based on what we've already gone through in the last 17 years.
Just keep in mind, the Gateway South, the applicant changed on their own because markets have changed and ideas have changed. Growth has changed. Connectivity of the roads, they wanted to change. So it does happen, but at least this gives some buy-in that, we're going through this now. There'll be some time frame that horizontal construction, not vertical. We're talking about just putting the civil stuff in, putting something in that roads, drainage, that type of thing. We're not talking vertical construction.
Any further questions from the public? Do you have any comments or questions? Anyone here today? If you would come to the microphone and just state your name and address.
Yes, sir. My name's Jerry Cochran, 219 Ridgewood Avenue. I was at the Planning and Zoning meeting, and unfortunately, the only people that got notified of the impact of this were those of it that live within 200 feet of their property. People live up and down Burner, Ponce de Leon, Saginaw, who are going to be enormously impacted by the traffic off of this, weren't notified. I don't think most people in the city are aware of this project and the magnitude of it. There's a couple of issues I spoke at it planning and zoning, and understand what I say is not going to make a whole lot of difference, but I'm going to say it anyhow. I'll probably be dead and gone before this project is anywhere near completion. In the 13 and a half years I've lived in Clewiston, things move slowly here, and it's going to take every bit of 20 years to come back to completion. Clewiston is not exactly a destination point for a lot of people. Was for me, but for most people, it's not. So I think the growth is going to be kind of slow. One thing that was discussed that only briefly at the P&Z meeting was impact fees, sewer and water. There were no other impact fees discussed, and I think, Mayor, you're exactly right. This shouldn't cost the current taxpayers a dime. And there are so many places that can come in. They're going to have to put a red light in. Who's going to pay for that? Streets are going to have to be repaved. Who's going to pay for that? If you don't really stay on top of it, some of the costs of this development are going to come back to the current taxpayers, and that's not supposed to happen. And if you don't stay on top of it, just the nature of developers, they're going to try and pass all the costs that they can back to the current taxpayers. Was a discussion about ISO rating. And yeah, that can affect ISO rating down here. But the thing you got to remember about ISO rating, unless my memory fails me, the biggest thing that addresses ISO rating is water supply. We don't have the greatest water supply. The supply in a lot of these neighborhoods needs to be redone, and that's where the cost is going to come in. That affects your ISO rating. The interconnectivity. In all due respect to the city manager, I think he's completely wrong on this. This interconnectivity, it's great for shopping areas. Connect the service station at I guess it's Burner, and with Kmart, or the Wendy's with the other shopping center. That's all well and good. But when you start having interconnectivity on residential areas and trying to tie them all together, not a good idea. My previous city I lived in, there was a development of about 2,000 houses. There was the entrance to the north, there's the entrance to the south, and there's a big loop. And there were little cul-de-sacs, coming off of that. They would have anywhere from 40 to 60 houses. And the only time that people came in there was if they had business. If you have what's proposed here, there's going to be people coming up Ponce de Leon. A lot of people live off the north side of the city, going to be coming in Ponce de Leon, taking that backside to get to the shopping in here. And same with Burner Road. Those roads can't be widened that I see. Burner Road can't be widened. Ponce de Leon can't be widened. And they're going to turn into heavy traffic areas. People are going to be cutting through on Saginaw. They're going to have a lot of traffic on them. And I don't think that's good for the city. It's just not healthy to tie all this together. If I was going to buy a home in the northeast corner of that development, is labeled R1. I would like to know I'm kind of in a cul-de-sac. I'm not going to have a lot of traffic back there. If I see traffic come up Ponce de Leon, a lot of people using that as the back door, or they're using Burner, that makes the housing, to me, a whole lot less desirable. There were 4 variations that the P&Z board approved on variances that they asked for. One was about parking. They wanted narrower parking lots, parking slips. Last time I looked around, there's a lot of big SUVs in town. There's a lot of pickup trucks. They need a bit bigger spots. There's a lot of small cars too, but at least half the traffic is bigger vehicles. I don't think you should be lowering the width of a parking spot. Think about that. If that's a good idea. The 50-foot lots. I understand they're not going to develop all this into 50-foot lots, but if you give them that variance, they sure could. They may come down here 10 years from now and say, whoops, the market's changed. When I sat on P&Z, one of the things we dealt with most frequently was the problem with 50-foot lots. People wanting to rebuild on them, people wanting to add an addition to their home on them. If they'd been damaged by fire, how do they rebuild on it? How big could the footprint be? And there was a continual discussion. We don't need any more 50-foot lots. They're a problem. And here we are about to rezone to allow 50-foot lots again. People don't move to Clewiston because they want a 50-foot lot. If they want a 50-foot lot, they'd stay over on the coast. Most people here like a little bit bigger lot. And this 50-foot lot, I understand the developer wants all of the accommodation and variance as possible. But I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, we're not giving that to you. We've got a current ordinance that addresses the size of a lot, and we're going to stick to it. My former city they wanted a dense or not so dense population. You could only put so many lots per acre. It was illegal, but they took it to the Supreme Court. It took it about 15 years to wind its way to the United States Supreme Court, and it was deemed illegal. Wasn't a problem anymore because it had already been developed, and they developed the current rules. But I would like to see you. I'm not saying they would, I don't think that's their plan, but it allows them to make every lot in there a 50-foot lot if you grant that variance. In other words, about trees and about, don't have to plant a tree in the front and tree in the back. I can understand don't plant a tree in the back if the lot is on water. But if it's not on water, don't give a blanket variance. We'll pick and choose. That's all. I hope you'll consider that. It's for food for thought, and I will be on the record as making a suggestion. I support the project. It's a good project. I don't have a problem with the eight-story tower back there. I don't have a problem with the marina. I think the project would be good for city, but I don't like all these variances, and I don't like the interconnectivity that seems to be such a big deal with everybody.
Right.
Do you want people racing up by your house all day long? I don't think so. And we've already got that on Burner, on Saginaw already. And all this is going to do, when it gets to full development, it's going to multiply it. And those streets just can't be widened. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Hello, I'm Natalie Sanchez. Thank you for the City of Clewiston for sending me that letter of the hearing, notice hearing for the public hearing. And I am concerned about this project. When I was reading the plans and the agenda earlier today, I was curious if there's going to be any types of social services for residents, because I really think that type of social services is needed currently and a couple years ago too. But I wasn't well aware about the different things and resources that could be available in the city because I was much younger at that time. And I learned about it later in life. And I didn't really read much. I know this is the beginning stages of the project, but it would be also really nice to have consideration for some social services for the residents that may be associated with this project, to stimulate any social and economic opportunities to improve the quality of life for the citizens here in Clewiston. My concerns are, will this displace any of the current local residents as new residents may want to come over here and build homes or want to move in? That's one concern. One question that I was wondering to have up in discussion. Another concern I was thinking of, will this continue a service-based job market here in the city of Clewiston? Because I noticed it a lot growing up here. I am 23 years old. I'm from Clewiston. I went to Westside. I went to Clewiston Middle School. I went to Clewiston High School. And I noticed there is a brain drain. And I just recently graduated from UCF back in December. And I want to come back, move home. I want to come back home with my family. But my degree and diploma, I don't think I can come work here, even though I want to live here one day in the future. Another thing I'm concerned is, what are the financial gains for the city with this development? I just want to know if will we have any future success in the long run? I know that's a 20-year plan, but just some things to consider and discuss with the commissioners, and to be more sustainable for this project, and as it is a 20-year plan. Has anybody spoke about smart growth or anything about that, the program, that type of program? It's facilitated by the U.S. EPA, and they can reinvest with rural communities and diversify the transportation around the city, economy, conserving green space, and help the city be more economically prosperous and socially equitable, and be much more sustainable in conserving the green space that we are really proud of. Because I was living in a bigger place, and I did miss the agricultural landscape. Whenever I was feeling homesick, I was feeling like, oh, I wish I can go back home and get a breath of fresh air. And that's just my concerns about as a local resident. I don't think I mentioned my address. I'm a resident in Avenida Del Rio. And my last statement for this is, I have low confidence. I have low confidence with this project. I don't have the authority to, move along with it or not, but as a concerned resident, if it goes if it keeps going, there's nothing I can do. But I hope you guys here in the commissioners deeply consider the future plans and how it will impact the local residents, not just new people coming in, but the people who have been living here for over 20 plus years. That's all I have to say.
I have a few follow-up
Thank you.
questions and like clarification, if you don't mind.
Yes, go ahead.
What kind of social services might you be looking for?
Social services that can aid senior citizens.
Like that might live in this community?
They probably live in that community, or the future impacts to the rest of the community of the city of Clewiston.
That building this community would have on the city of Clewiston?
I just think that
I'm trying to figure out how it ties.
I really want to place in more of importance, more attention. I know this is a big project, and the city is going to put a lot of prioritization, if I said that word correctly.
Yeah.
But I would like to, as a resident here, like social services that have better economic opportunities, educational opportunities, stepping away from service-based job market here, because I noticed that what kind of higher skill levels can we incorporate in the city for example, in that commercial zoning right there below.
Sure. Like what kind of jobs can we hope to see come to that commercial development area?
Yes.
I guess what I'm trying to connect in my brain is I don't disagree at all that we need to have, better social services in our community. And, for a long time, we didn't have a head of parks and leisure recreation, and we do now. And we're seeing things, moving in the right direction in that respect, which is nice. But this is private development. So this isn't taxpayer money.
Okay.
And, yes, the city will make it a priority of sorts, but it's not, does that make sense? It's not our money.
Okay.
It's not taxpayer funded. It would be privately funded.
Okay. Well, thank you for educating me on that and clarifying that. That's really helpful.
Natalie,
but then,
can I just ask you a question?
Yes.
Okay. I would hope that you could give your cell number, your mobile number to our clerk, because I would love to talk
Yes.
to you about the social services that are available here, not only for some of the young, but for some of the old. We have some great social service groups, and even, the Community Health Center here in town, our health department, but also Hope Connections for seniors and what they're doing, going into helping people in their own homes, which is all part of, governmental agencies, and it's great. But I'd love to hear your ideas. And as far as higher skills, the Rotary Club just received a wonderful presentation of a program. It's called ISTA, and that's a 3-year program that qualifies local residents for highly skilled jobs that at the end of their training, they start out with an easily at $60,000 a year. So there are opportunities here. It might not be on the city website, or it might not be on the county website, and it certainly isn't part of the development. But there's a lot of things that are happening that I think that you in your future would look really well into our community. And can I ask you, what was your major?
Public administration
Okay.
and nonprofit management.
I'd love to talk to you, and I know our city manager, I'm not throwing him under the bus, but we all like to talk about the town. And one of the things, and I'll mention this, Jerry, you talked about it, and you've also mentioned it. I've lived here since 1963. Every time there's been a new development in Clewiston, it's about connectivity. This plan of Clewiston was a master plan by John Nolan. And one of the things that he thought was really important about a town is that you can live, work, and play within walking distance of all of it. And that's why we have the parks at a great cost to the city, but we have the parks. That's why we have the sidewalks that we have. And most importantly, that's why when we have a new development, and Jerry, you live in one of the developments, I grew up, and at Circle Drive, there was a canal, and you didn't cross that canal because it was agriculture on the other side. When Ridgeview was built, Ponce de Leon was extended. when Ridgeview was built. When Ridgewood was built, Ponce de Leon was extended, and that was done because of connectivity. In my years of being here, we never thought about that we wanted like a gated community. We wanted to be able to have folks be able to travel through the town and be able to, connect. And there might not be all that connectivity, and all three of the roads might not be necessary. I don't know that. But Clewiston's design was about connectivity. And so, I just wanted to mention that to you, Natalie, and I would love to talk to you because there's a lot of things I'd like to share with you.
And I have little to no doubt that you being excited to come back is exciting, and little to no doubt that we couldn't place you in a job in your field in our community. It might not always feel like the opportunities are here, but they are. We really have a lot of opportunities that just go unnoticed, So it would be great to connect with you outside of here.
Okay. Thank you so much for speaking with me about that. And I'll take in consideration what you spoke to me just now. And besides that, those were just my concerns about this development and the future of the town. I want to make sure that Clewiston is better than it is. I mean, it is good as it is right now, but I want to make sure, I want to leave an impact in my life that it can be prosperous and healthy and stable for not just me and my family, but the people I grew up with, and any future future families or future people that want to decide to move in. And so, on that note, my last statement is maybe look into smart growth. I looked into it myself. It seems really good. Maybe have that discussion in the future. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Natalie, can I just say one more thing? I hope you give your number there to our clerk, but I can just tell you that the hope and the plan of John Nolan was for Clewiston to be a community of 25,000 people. We're short of that, and without development, we're not going to get there. And so I agree that smart growth is part of it, and is all, it really is. And when you look at these plans, when we saw the plan in 2006 with Bonita Bay, it was all exciting to see that, and it was future growth. And now that we're seeing this plan, it is future growth, and we can certainly, look at all that. And I know the developers are going to do that, but I'd just like to thank you for coming up tonight, because your interest in what happens in the town's future, your town's future, it's exciting to see.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you, Natalie. Anyone else? Any other questions by the commission? I'll declare the public hearing part closed at this point and entertain a motion to approve or disapprove ordinance 2023-02.
I move to approve.
Second.
A second.
I was going to make a motion just earlier, but before Greg got there, but to include the three conditions that were brought up tonight, two by the city attorney for the replanning, and the third by the applicant. So that would be section 1, number 3, section 8, section 1, changing it from 5 to 7 years. I don't know.
I amend my motion to accept the 3 recommendations.
Okay, amended by Thompson, second by,
I don't know who did. I thought Barbara had done the second earlier, but
I
Yeah,
kind
it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Go ahead.
yeah. That's why I heard Gardner first, so
well,
second by Gardner. Any further discussion? Go ahead, you have something?
no, I just thought it was Barbara. I'm sorry. I mean, I was going to make a motion to include that, but Greg got it first, and I think Barbara made that second, correct? Okay, yeah, sorry.
Okay, second by Barbara. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
If I could, Mayor and Commission, I'd like to make just a couple of comments. Just to remind everyone, it's not final action. This is just first reading. There will be a public hearing on April the 17th, at which the commission will consider final action. And all citizens are encouraged to participate in that. And we do really appreciate the feedback and input tonight. And I'll be glad to address any of the comments and questions that were raised with individuals of the public or directly or through the commission, either way. But I'll reserve the other comments and responses till you have the next hearing. But specifically, you had the discussion on interconnectivity and so forth. No issue with those comments. The variances, as Travis indicated, were accepted by the planning and zoning, and now you've endorsed those for carrying forward for the next meeting, as well as the recommendations or items that were listed by the city attorney. The only other thing I was going to mention is we need and welcome any further questions or input between now and then, and we will try to have responses and address those. I join the commission in welcoming those comments and look forward to the next reading. But one thing is for sure, Clewiston, if we have problems like every community, we may, but I think it's incumbent on me to, as an advisor to the city commission, to say that this city desperately needs to overcome the stagnation that for a lot of reasons has occurred in terms of growth over the last number of years. The mayor mentioned the history there, which is accurate. That's one of the things we work so hard is to develop our infrastructure and prepare so that we're ready for it. This is part of a grander scheme, there's no doubt. There's significant commercial development on the table to be considered to the west that would address the economic shortcomings in many ways by giving an opportunity for additional job creation. There's 60 acres of commercial in this development that would also benefit the city. We are lacking in a number of key service areas in our community in terms of the types of businesses that create healthy competition and meet our demands. We saw that through the pandemic, the shortage with foods and things because of our limited number of providers for things like that. So this will address some of the things that we keep hearing from those that could potentially bring such businesses to our community is we need more heads in beds, we need more residences. We certainly, I don't think anyone will argue, have a shortage of available residential properties. We cannot grow without homes for people to live in. Fortunately, the economic circumstances right now tend to lend themselves to the direction that it's a good time to have development of residential properties to fill all the different types of needs. But we really are desperately in need of that, in my opinion. And certainly the development cost should be borne by the developer who's going to profit from the sale of these properties and creating these businesses. And the city's infrastructure will be better for it because we will have an improved situation in terms of the economies of scale. Our existing customers now bear the full brunt of costs for operation of various utilities and other services. Spreading some of those fixed costs that are inherent to such operations among a much broader base of customers has got to be advantageous to the existing customers and not be an unfair burden on the new customers either. In terms of fair share, but the developer has a role in it too, and I believe the development of this property will clearly recognizes that. And in terms of streets, the streets will come in built to our standards, and utilities likewise, and they should be very low maintenance during the early years, the decades that those begin. But it is a long-term plan. The economy will really drive how fast or how slow this project goes. But our goal is to try to plan appropriately so that when it occurs, we still have the character representative of Clewiston in terms of things like connectivity, as was mentioned, open space, parks, flexibility for the residents to avoid using 27 as the primary only route to traverse from one end of town to the other, because it cuts both ways. Opening up routes actually could have a positive effect on some of the current residents who see all of the traffic from a particular development coming their way when streets are stubbed out and dead end for a reason into undeveloped property, so that those impacts can be spread out. We don't have to look very far to see the existing developments in the community that have been here for decades that live with that every day. So I'll defer to any questions, but otherwise, our intent is to bring this back at the next meeting with the public hearing and consider action. As Travis pointed out, we'll be having other development-related requests. We are still pursuing, as was discussed at your workshop. We've had meetings with engineers to go forward with master planning to make sure that our utilities are sufficient to meet the demand projected. And of course, we're seeking all the support we can from the federal and state government, as we'll talk about on one of the next items, for funding to support our infrastructure enhancements necessary. Thank you.
All right, any other comments? Would like Johnson Engineering, Travis, and our advisory, to take into consideration some of the comments made tonight and, really think about them. I know this is just the PUD hearing and approval, but I know when that final master plan comes out, we'll definitely have a lot more public hearings on that, so. Okay, let's move on to item 3. It's a resolution. Resolution 2023-20020 authorizes an application to the U.S. Congress for a congressional appropriation for the community project funding to improve and expand the existing City of Clewiston wastewater treatment plant. And the city manager can fill us in on the application you sent in.
Yes, sir. Yes, it has been submitted. The lone additional item necessary is a authorizing resolution, which is before you tonight. This would allow us to build upon the success we had last year with our previous congressional representative, Mario Diaz-Balart, who championed a request from the city for funding, seed money, if you will, to begin our wastewater treatment plant need projects. And we were successful in December of '22 in getting approved for $3 million. This item is to request from our new congressional representative due to redistricting, Scott Franklin. His office worked with them to submit an application for $4.7 million and change to supplement the $3 million, which would give us $7.7 million to pursue a first phase, if you will, of our wastewater treatment plant upgrade of the existing facilities to meet modern standards and requirements. It would allow us to, speaking to a comment that was made in the last hearing we just held, in this realm of smart growth, is to have environmentally friendly compliance with water treatment standards, so that we make sure that our wastewater effluent meets the highest and best standards available with current technology as it was built. We're now entering the 5th decade of its operation. It was built in the early 80s and has secondary treatment. This would take that to tertiary treatment level, meaning that we would produce from this plant reuse quality water that could be used for irrigation purposes to eliminate the need for the city using groundwater for such uses and its residents. We also are working with developers for the projects that have been mentioned today to incorporate that into their utility planning, so that those units would have a separate utility line that would be there for irrigation type uses and other non-potable uses, so that we preserve groundwater and other advantages of that for an area that's so sensitive next to Lake Okeechobee. I think it's a high priority. This particular request has been, does not compete with, it actually complements our request that had been made to the legislature in Florida for funding to build out the plant, all phases, and accomplish all the stated goals for the plant, as well as allow us the capacity to handle growth such as plans that we have before you tonight on this agenda, as well as further development heading towards the airport along this 27 corridor that has been in the early stages of planning for those requests as well. And it would allow for redevelopment opportunities both within and outside the city in close proximity to these extended water and sewer lines to serve the airport and all properties in between. So I'll stop with that and answer any questions of the commission, but we will send this immediately to the congressional office to supplement our application. This is for funding in the 24 fiscal year budget, which hopefully will be adopted sometime in 23 and would allow us to proceed with the next first phase of the project. Hopefully by then we will have some indication from the Florida General Assembly of what action they're going to take with regard to our request for funding there. And hopefully it could be one large project put out to bid. But this would allow for, both sources would allow for full funding of all phases, including the expanded capacity request that we'll be submitting to the state for additional treatment capacity.
All right, let me go ahead and read this by title, and we'll make a motion, and then if anyone has any comments. Resolution 2023-020, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Clewiston, Florida, authorizing an application to the U.S. Congress for congressional appropriation for the community project funding to improve and expand the existing City of Clewiston maintained wastewater treatment plant, providing an effective date and for other purposes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And we believe when we get the Florida state appropriation, a much needed expansion of our, and upgrade of our wastewater treatment plant. The next item 4 is another resolution to approve Florida Atlantic University's Master Research Agreement. And I will read that by title. Resolution 2023-021, a resolution of the City of Clewiston, Florida, approving Florida Atlantic University Master Research Agreement, number AGR 22-017, and Task Order Number 1 between Florida Atlantic University and the City of Clewiston for the research and development of a watershed master plan. We have a motion to approve, or
So moved.
motion by Gardner,
Second for discussion.
second by Highslope. Any discussion? Manager, would you fill everybody in?
Yes,
please.
at a previous meeting, you approved a grant, receiving a grant for this purpose, and this is the agreement between Florida Atlantic University to do the research contemplated. They helped us craft and submit the grant application, and this is a necessary step that has significant benefits to the community, long-term and particularly if we're able to lower our community rating system score, the National Flood Insurance Program, as this would benefit us towards that goal, which would lower insurance premiums for businesses and residents in the community if we're successful in that effort, which is much broader, obviously. It also helps us to meet our goals and requirements of our state obligations for watershed management, and in particular, the BMAP program that the engineers here tonight, if you need them to comment further on that and refresh your memory of that issue. But there are a number of benefits that this could bring to us, and it is at essentially no hard cost to the city. We would be contributing 25% of the project estimated cost of value of the $50,000 project, which would be our in-kind services of $12,500. Also, Lynn Mileage here, she may have any comments, so help me answer any questions you may have. But we're working with our consultant, Mr. Fred Bolsher, and who's worked with us on a number of initiatives, and I appreciate him bringing this to our attention, this opportunity to get funding for something that will benefit the city long-term.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, resolution number 2023-022. This is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Clewiston, Florida, approving the award through piggyback contract of the City of Lake Worth Beach right-of-way vegetation management, contract number IFB 19-100, for the vegetation removal services as needed by the city to the Davy Tree Expert Company, authorizing the execution of a contract with the awardee, providing an effective date, and for other purposes. And we have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Highslope, second by Gardner, and I'll ask the manager again to,
Okay, I will ask Lynn to come up if you have any questions specifically on this one, or Danny, whoever. Danny, you want to do it, or Lynn? This is a program that they initiated within the department. Well, both of you can. This is a program they initiated, so I want to make sure they get full credit for it. And because of the advantage this was, and we just went through a storm of the impact of doing this, it needed maintenance along our electric utility system in particular, to minimize the outages related to growth of vegetation, trees, and of the sort that impacts on the system. And we did budget for this, and you approved it in the budgeted, but it exceeds the amount that we can administratively authorize, even though it's a piggyback contract with another community that went through the procurement process. So I'll let Danny talk about the benefits of this and when he started this and
Yep.
how successful.
Danny
it's
Williams, Director of Operations. Another benefit to this is line loss. When, of course, the trees are in the power lines and they're rubbing, that's creating line loss, which we lose, of course. But this has been a great benefit to us, and it is budgeted. I think it's $125,000, and it really, really helped us last time. Especially, we didn't have that many outages, but we do this last storm. We know the areas where we do need to improve and trim the trees again. But they do a great job, and it definitely benefited for us during the storms.
Danny, how does this contractor bill us? Is it by the hour? Is it by a tree?
Trucks. Man hours, yes. Vehicles and the man hours.
Are we going to have a designated person to police this contractor?
Me. Yeah,
My
they
experience
communicate, Mike and myself and Lynn.
Because
Yes.
without it, my experience, these kind of contracts can go awry. It's very lucrative.
No,
for the
no.
contractor.
These guys were very good. We've used them. We've actually. It started basically, we used them one day a week. They worked for the co-op, and we just brought them in to try them. And they were did an excellent job. Very, very good, very loyal.
We have areas mapped out yet where they're
Yes.
going to go?
Yes.
where do they take the debris? Or do they?
They take it, they mulch it, and then they haul it. Yep.
Mulch it on their truck. I
Yep.
went to Glades Electric also uses them.
Yes.
And I saw them at work outside the city limits because of the power lines.
Yep.
And they were amazing.
Yep.
You
That's
know,
what they do for us. They
Yeah.
I think
cut them
the
up.
utilities require them to mulch it and take it off. Other
Yeah.
utilities they work for.
These guys couldn't work for Disney World. They cut these trees pretty good. No, but they're excellent. They're good people. And they communicate every day. I mean, you know where they're going to show up. And we were using 2 trucks last time, 2 crews. We had one on the north side, one on the south side.
And you might want to talk about the history of when you came up with this concept versus what the city used to do.
Well, we did it in-house, and it takes a lot from us. I mean, we're a small crew, but we got a good crew, and taking this time from those guys, take it off of them. Now we can build lines. I mean, like just now, our city crew built a whole new line to the wastewater treatment plant. We were having a lot of surges, and of course, it was our phase that was going out there, our single phase. So we've rebuilt that whole line. So I've got a crew that can do that. And plus, we did the pole inspections, and we had 300 poles out of 2,300 that failed, and these guys changed about 1 or 2 a week. So, I mean, they stay busy. And then, again, it's hardening our system.
I believe the guys that were doing this prior are high-skilled utility guys, right? Electrical workers
Our guys? Yeah.
prior, which may not have been a good use of their time
Yeah.
from trees.
Right. I mean, most municipalities, that's what they do, and you can talk to them. But I'm trying to dedicate these guys so we can stay focused on our system, our undergrounds. I mean, you know, we change out. We've got direct bury, which is not in pipe. We change so many a week or a month. We got a schedule that we keep.
How soon can they start then?
As soon as you approve it, they're here. They actually lost a contract on the East Coast. Didn't lose it, but it just phased out. And they've got trucks available immediately. So that's when we started reaching out and talking to them.
And timetable, you think we'll have it complete or substantially complete before the hurricane season?
Oh, yeah, for sure. All our feeders, we have 6 feeders, is clean. That's what they did for us. So now we're just doing the laterals. And we got a few on the East El Paso, West El Paso area that's pretty thick. And then we got a few places on the north. But we've hit it pretty good. In our Harlem community, we've hit that area pretty good too.
Any more questions? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item 6 is old business.
I just have a question about the workshops. I know, Randy, we were gonna have some more workshops, but I think there's 2 of them that I would definitely like to see us, you know, the replacing of the cast iron water lines, and also of the discussion for redevelopment on alley abandonment and easement issues, list of identification of them. I think those 2 go well together. So I know we've had already one workshop, and we had quite a few last year, and we got some things done, especially the US 27 corridor plan. And so I'd like to us, you know, to continue on with having one soon.
Okay.
And those are the 2 topics I think are important for redevelopment. I don't know if we can have one before the next meeting, or, but I don't know how the rest of the commission feels, but I think it's important to keep tackling this old business list.
Okay. We'll work something up. We can give a little bit of an update on the water line item, because that is one of the items that was mentioned by the engineers that would be specifically addressed in the master planning effort, calculating specific locations and where they need to be replaced. But we can give you an update on that.
If any updates on that, if not, we can,
Okay.
we may have it.
All right.
But I definitely want to talk about the redevelopment plan now that we've got the US 27 corridor ordinance in place.
Okay.
Anyone else on old business? Do you want to set a workshop date?
I mean, I think he's going to look at options for April, maybe.
Yeah, we were going to look in later in April. I know we ran into conflict. I was going to mention tonight. Tonight, I did want to point out at the last workshop we discussed the next step on the waterfront master plan discussion, and choosing one of those concepts or with any revisions or additional changes. But we had talked about doing that on April 10th, but there were a couple of scheduling conflicts. So now we're planning on doing that right after our April meeting, or at the end of the April 17th meeting. So we don't expect that to be a long agenda. It possibly could, but we were going to schedule that workshop the following Monday, and that still meets our requirements for having this for public hearing in May. I don't know that that would be an appropriate time to add additional items, but probably 2 weeks later, we could, or something like that, we could come back if schedules will allow in early May or whatever, and do another workshop on some of these other topics that have been mentioned. You've also given us direction on personnel policies. We're working on that, accomplishing that goal, so that will likely need some discussion at workshop environment. I don't know if it will be one at that meeting, but those are some of the things on the schedule. And of course, goal setting for the next budget fiscal year will shortly follow that, because we'll be right into it.
Okay.
So just to clarify, you said that our meeting's on the 17th of April.
That's our regular meeting, and what we would do is tag the workshop at the
On that
end.
same
Yeah,
night
same
instead of the
night.
24th.
If that's
Okay.
agreeable, if
Okay.
no one objects, that would,
Okay.
that's, I assumed everyone would be at that meeting, so that would be a good time to try to address that next step.
Okay, item 7, the monthly reports. Any comments, questions?
Just to follow up from the last meeting, I have had a discussion with Travis regarding the concern with the reporting, and the staff has been meeting interdepartmental to comply with some of our other goals on interdepartmental. I don't know, Travis, if you want to, is he still here? You want to comment on how you're going to accomplish the concern, address the concern? You weren't here at that meeting, so related to making sure that it's up to date with current owners on permits and things of that nature.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Yes, it's been an ongoing problem for years now. If a contractor applies for a permit and our data isn't updated because we are not linked in with the county property appraiser, then that contractor has a right to get a permit. The permit is issued, but the name on the permit could be someone who was a property owner many years in the past. So we've got a system now where we're checking those daily. If they come in, we check them, verify them. If there's a problem, we'll have the contractor go back, get a signed affidavit that that person is the person that owns the property now. It isn't a problem legally because the contractor is legally responsible, but in the past, we could only catch that if it was owner builder, where they had to sign an affidavit. Then we would check it against the current property appraiser records. We could catch it. So now we're doing that. It's a little more keystrokes for the staff to do, but it's not a problem in keeping up with it. We're still looking at E-Track-It, which is another vendor, which is a lot more robust, but there's a lot more cost. It's quite more expensive. So right now, the staff time is probably better spent just inputting it, and we'll, maybe not this budget year, but the following budget year, we'll look into something different. We're going to revisit Tyler, which we already own, and see if they can mesh with us. Last time we met with Tyler, they did not. The module that they provided for building services was very limited. I could find no cities that were using it currently that were happy with it. So now that has been some time has passed. I'd say that's probably 5 to 7 years ago. So we're going to look at those two steps, either the E-Track-It, which the county uses, or Tyler, or maintain what we have. But we have made some changes. We've heard the commission, and we're really trying to make those changes. It's just administratively, we have to do that on each permit now. The time it's taking is not significant.
I think it's important that, when the permit's issued, it's issued to the current property owner.
It is an embarrassment, and I don't like it either, so.
Okay.
With no more dead people pulling a permit.
I say, well, there's always going to be human error.
Yeah, well, barring any oversight, hopefully we won't have it happening.
And I have when you mentioned Tyler, I thought about that we've just
Our
going through
oversight
this.
will bring it up.
No, well, I wasn't going to bring it up tonight because I was waiting on an answer, so I appreciate the update. But I do have a question. I know that we have someone here that's helping us from past presentations with the AMI project that worked for Tyler. Is there a way that we can talk to her about this module
Yes.
that you're saying? I think
Sherry
it'd
has
be-
already communicated, and she's working with
Okay.
Travis's
Right.
staff to evaluate the pros and cons of incorporating it, because there's an advantage to having it incorporated into the financial side, because it's going to be more work one way or the other. If they don't use the Tyler, then they'll have to enter all that data twice, if you will, in the current system as well as the
We
Tyler
would
system.
much rather have the Tyler if the citizens can still be served by it, and we can meet the state requirements for the online permitting and the online progress. And that's a piece we haven't got to yet. We're trying to get there, and we will get there. And one thing I will add is a lot of these companies for software, they merge. Harris was, not very robust. Now they are. Our emergency reporting software is now owned by Harris. It was owned by someone else. So they kind of merge and move. So I am curious to see what Tyler has, and excited to see if they've made that.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so.
That'd be so much easier.
Yeah, so is that gonna be part of our goal setting, that we can talk about this for the budget? I mean, I know Travis mentioned not this year, but next year, but I think it's something that we need to look at on the,
Absolutely.
for the goal setting.
In a horizon, we can get there, and hopefully, the easier it is for us to process it, the more information we can get out to the public, the better it is.
And I think also the ease for the applicant, if it's
It is, all the way
online, I mean,
around.
it's a huge difference.
Yep, and if you can go and check your
We can go.
status without having to
Yeah.
call, that makes it much more
Or show up.
efficient. All right, thank you.
Thanks for the update, Randy.
Hey, one last question. Travis, that everything has to be digitized by a certain date?
Well, the legislature's always telling us that. They give us no money to do it. So, yes, sir. We have to be able to take online payments. We have to be able to process credit cards. Until recently, we weren't able to do that. We're still working towards that goal. We have to be able to accept all plans digitally. We have just had to purchase
That's been
a
around for a
piece of
while, too,
equipment.
hasn't it?
Yeah, it was a
That
cost.
mandate was,
If you remember, I don't want to bring it
Okay.
up, but we had to go through budget time to purchase a new piece of equipment to get some of our plans that we have now scanned in there. And it was cheaper for us to purchase it, use city staff to scan everything other than going out to a private company. They actually wanted more to come in and
We're
do it
still- you're
for us
still
than we could
working
buy
on
the
that.
equipment. So yes, sir, your answer, yes,
Okay.
we're working towards it. We will get there, but so many times, like the state, they tell us to do a thing and pass legislation and give no funding to do it.
We know that.
Thank you, Travis.
Randy, may I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know if we're going to be able to accommodate the rugby tournament?
I haven't heard any issue with that. I haven't. Danny, have you got an update from them recently on? I think they picked a date. Was it in April?
are you playing?
No,
I'll just ask
hadn't been asked.
marathon, pitcher, just add rugby to the list.
Nah, I don't know if I'm up
They
to
were-
that one, but
They were wanting to.
yeah, they were.
expedite that.
They were working with director to work out the details of their schedule, but I haven't heard anything to
I'll
the
follow up
contrary.
with her.
We'll make sure, but I haven't heard anything to the contrary in the last week.
Okay,
So,
good. I'll check in.
as far as
with
I
her.
know, it's still playing.
I think it's April 15th.
Yeah, I think that was the date they were shooting for.
Thank
Coming
you.
down the road.
Thank you.
And I don't need an update, I'll just request from Chief. I've asked before about running some traffic coming into town. And I know you said we only have 2 officers, but is there a way we could reach out to Highway Patrol, their commercial unit, or the SO to help us out? I mean, I see it every day, where I come out, 70 mile an hour semi's coming right in front of Stanton Mobile Home. And it's just, it's out of hand. If, reach out to the SO or whatever it takes to handle it, mostly commercial traffic.
Right, anything else on item 7? We'll go to item 8. Manager.
Can I just, I'm sorry, Mayor, following up on what Commissioner Heislip just asked about the rugby, if that's April 15th, is there a special license or something, or a special event application that we have to approve? Because our meeting's not until the 17th.
No, it'll just be, they're not going to do anything that would require a resolution or authorization. They're just wanting to utilize the facility, the ball field.
Okay, all right.
The biggest thing is just scheduling to not conflict with other users like soccer and those
Or
things.
yeah,
Or
baseball
balls.
practices
Yeah.
or whatever.
And Danny, you've been in communication with them on what they're, do you have anything to add to that? Yeah, anything you want to add to that, or?
I mean, when I spoke Evan reached out to me, and of course I hooked him up with Lauren, and I think Lauren finally reached back to him. And something about April 15th, I think he's going to come and look at the fields. One of the fields is in pretty good shape. That's something we were working on. The sprinkler system was not working. So we do have that working now, and the fields are shaping up a little better. But that was our concerns, is the fields. But we did say we got one good one, and he was good with that. So he is coming on that date and to look. And
This is a broad association that from the coast that would sort of meet in the middle, something we've been wanting to promote.
And it seemed as if they were interested in doing it rather
Yeah,
regularly.
yeah, this
Yeah.
wouldn't be the only, this is sort of like a test to see how it would work. So it's a new item for me. I don't know a lot about it, but I've,
Me either.
Rough sport.
yeah, I've seen it on the tube, so it'll be interesting to see how it works
Versus
out.
Australian rules football.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. City Manager, you have some announcements?
I covered the first item earlier that I was going to mention about the meeting time. So it's my pleasure. One of the better things to do, of course, it's always dangerous to single out people. I did want to mention tonight, we just had the commission certainly aware of it and made you very well aware of it. And I know the county acknowledged it at their meeting recently. The city's very proud of the accomplishments of our Animal Services Department or Division of the Police Department and their statewide recognition. Chief, I don't know if you want to comment on that since you went to that, but I think it's always good. It's hard to single out any particular group or whatever, but when an organization gets statewide recognition, I think they deserve a little extra treatment. So
I appreciate that. I'd always like the opportunity to talk about that. We took the 2022 Small Agency of the Year for the state of Florida through the Florida Animal Control Association. There's probably 80 member organizations, some big, some small, but we took first place in the state, and I think we've come a long way in the last maybe 19, 20 months. So we're definitely very proud of that. We have a great staff now. Of course, attrition, we're finally kind of stabilized now where we have some folks that we have trained to our philosophy and trained, in the day-to-day activities, but I think we're definitely on the right track. We've got a little bit more work to go, but we're massaging those ends as well.
okay. Just wanted to mention that publicly.
I'd just like to say that's pushed from the top down. That's when you show up to animal control and the chief of police is wet from the waist down from cleaning dog pens and painting and stuff. It says a lot. It's people tend to follow when you have leadership like that.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we're definitely a no-kill shelter. We changed from, quite frankly, being a very high-kill shelter, but the first 12 months we've saved 1,550 animals, so it just kind of shows you a little bit what tiny little Clewiston gets in as far as volume. Partnering with our rescue partners out there really kind of makes the big difference. So
I'd like to share with you that my son he and his girlfriend brought in an animal that they saw get hit on the side of the road a couple weeks ago. And he said, I knew the girlfriend was in the car. I knew we had to stop, And so they stopped, and she said, we'll take it to animal control. They're no kill, And I said, but Kyler, like sometimes if the animal can't be saved, the animal can't be saved. Try to make him understand, And anyway, a few days, maybe a couple weeks go by, the animal gets adopted, and it's on your Facebook page. And he was highly impressed with our animal shelter.
you guys should be.
And
if
that
you
was
get
awesome.
If you get a chance to stop down there, you really should. It's a completely remodeled facility. Again, we still have some things that can certainly improve, but it's night and day of the way it used to be, for sure. It's a great success story, though.
It was very cool. Very cool.
And the
Thank you, guys.
morale down there now, especially winning the award,
The work environment.
is through the roof. It's just
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Yeah, our staff are really happy about that. Thank you for bringing it up. Thank you, Randy.
All right, and certainly not prioritizing animals over our own employees, but one of the primary things I had on the agenda was to announce Outstanding Employees of the Year. It's my opportunity to review these, and their peer recommendations are made from other employees, which I think speaks volumes for recognitions of this nature. It's always difficult to single people out. It certainly is an indictment of other employees. There are probably many, well, I know there are many, many deserving employees that are deserving of recognition of this nature. But it is my task to present one in each of these categories each year. And I'm pleased to announce the latest additions to this tradition that the city established some time ago. The city established recognition for the following categories of employees: general services, police department, which includes animal services and communications, public works department, public utilities department, and of course, the difficult job of picking a director. A nomination process is employed whereby peer employees or directors may nominate fellow employees using an approved form for those who meet the basic qualification criteria and exemplify the characteristics deserving of the recognition. The deserving employees being recognized this time have all been nominated utilizing this process. Of course, the city has numerous employees in each of these categories that arguably are deserving of recognition, as I stated, but the selected employees are deemed to have gone above and beyond in their public sector service efforts to benefit the Clewiston community for this cycle period. I sincerely appreciate the contributions of each and every employee and take the opportunity every time I see them. I did a lot this weekend to thank them for their collective efforts to make Clewiston a wonderful place to live, work, play, and do business. As for each of the outstanding employees and their service over the past couple of years, I'm announcing the following. I'll hand out copies to the commission if you got a drum roll or whatever, but I think there's enough there. Guess I should have found mine.
I think yours is included.
Oh, here it is. Okay. I've got one that I made some notes on. These employees will, as we did last year, be brought back to the commission for additional recognition. Tonight is just the announcement. In general services, Mercedes Chavaria, she has 3 years of service, has been picked as the successful employee. She received numerous nominations and impacts on many departments. If you haven't met her and don't know her, you need to, because she's a genuine, wonderful person. All these people are, but she in particular will brighten your day. Shaquan Horace is the representative of the police department, receiving multiple nominations, 3 years service with the city. In public works, this is a 3-time MVP, if you will. Public Works Department, Jay Ensminger, has been with us 30 years. He was selected in 07 and 15 for the same recognition, and he could probably qualify for it every year. Likewise, the Public Utilities Department, Monica Perez, 23 years of service was prior recognition in 07. And none of these employees know they're being recognized tonight unless they read my mind, because I've kept it close to the vest with just getting input on the decision-making process when we had more than one nomination from, I sought the director's input. But in this particular case, there are a number of people that are very deserving, but Monica Perez is certainly deserving. And last but not least, by any stretch, our Director of the Year is Sherry Howell, 35 years of experience with the city. 2004, 2016 recognition for the same thing, and another person who could certainly deserve it every year and in between. I'm pleased to work with these people, and they'll be invited to your next meeting for a specific recognition of each, and we'll go forward.
Congratulations to them all. That's fabulous. Yeah.
We shouldn't post this on Facebook right now.
Oh, they probably already know it. Somebody may
It already is, that's right.
Somebody may already beat us to it. It's out there, and if some of them are listening, thank you. If we could give them a round of applause, I think that'd be perfect, even though they're not here. Even though they're they're not here tonight, we'll have them and give them more appropriate recognition. And with that, Mayor, that's all I have to offer tonight.
All the recipients, that's a great job. Okay, we'll move on to comments. City Attorney?
Comments here.
All right, the City Commission, Commissioner Gardner.
I was just going to bring up about the Sugar Fest, so we did that earlier. So again, kudos to the committee and to the city staff. Y'all did an amazing job.
Same.
Commissioner Hustler?
I
Yeah.
did my comment earlier.
Yeah. All right, Commissioner Edmonds?
It's fantastic to have a young person come up. I love that. That's how we grow. And, 20 years from now, these are the people that will be here and
You'll be
taking
sitting
care
up
of
here.
us. And
Or you.
anyway, I commend the city staff because they're amazing. Fantastic job for this weekend and this past week.
Awesome.
Once again, everybody on the committee, especially our city staff, they stayed busy all the time. I didn't see a person standing still for 1 minute. And recognize Commissioner Highslope. She had a big hand in it. She was out there all day, working her tail off.
All week.
Well, a couple months probably.
Thank you.
And I would like to ask Rennie if we could, the next meeting or workshop, put on agenda a discussion on the city vehicle policy. Please, sir. Probably better in a workshop.
That would be included in the personnel policy thing if,
Just the individual conversation.
oh, okay, on city vehicle policy, okay, all right.
That's it.
Yeah, kudos to the city, the U.S. Sugar, the committee, everything. I ditto all those comments. And also for the next meeting, if we could have some sort of a schedule of workshops. I know it's a little early to talk about budget workshops, but really not.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be on top of us, just so we can kind of plan out
Sure.
with vacations and things
Yeah,
that.
I think we draft a tentative agenda, schedule, so we'll try to have that ready for
Take
next.
We get to take those vacations?
Oh,
We get to do that?
if you have one. And then the workshops mentioned tonight, Commissioner Gardner mentioned a couple of items, and if we have to meet, more, I know that's what we're here for.
Yeah,
So
I
let's get
agree.
some of these things off of our list that have been pending for now 2 years, over 2 years since I've been on here, and maybe longer than that. But we need to whittle that list down and make a decision or table it indefinitely or whatever we need to do. But so if we could just kind of get a list of some dates, and even if we have to pick some dates at the next meeting, that's what we can do. All right, with that, if no one has anything, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Gardner,
Second.
second by Highslope. We are adjourned.